Hello, everybody. Welcome to our leadership series where we meet senior leaders from various organizations, global capability centers that have been operating in India and creating fantastic outcomes, not just for their organizations, but for the country as well. Today, we have Krishnamoorthy with us from Sony. Ravi wears multiple hats for their organization, along with being the center head for the IT team at Sony. He also plays the role for the deputy CIO and also leads application development management for Sony. Ravi, thank you so much for joining us today. Our pleasure to have you.
Nice to meet you, Sukanya. Glad to be part of this.
Ravi, give us a view. We were just chatting before and you told us that you started at a point where this entire GCC ecosystem was at early maturity. And today you're at a point where it's an extremely matured industry, flourishing, creating great impact. So give us a little bit of a view of your journey and how did you start and where you are today?
Yeah, thank you, Sukanya. Yeah, very interesting and happy to share the information about myself and as well as the journey of Sony in India. So, of course, Sony in India, we started almost 25 years ago, and I came in between about 12 years ago. And when I started at Sony, I think we were more focused on providing IT services and support to our global businesses. And at that time, in fact, frankly, our name we were called as ORMC, which stood for Offshore Resource Management Center. And that was the starting point in the sense, as the name indicates, Offshore Resource Management Center, we were typically seen as a resourcing provider to the Sony entities. That was the starting point. But I think, over the years, we have matured and come a long way in terms of how we are perceived, how we are positioned, as well as how we add value to the larger Sony entity. And in the last few years, basically, we have become one of the central units within the Sony IT organization globally. And from multiple aspects, providing the scope or let's say the breadth of what support we provide to the Sony companies. Earlier, we were providing support mainly to our consumer electronics business, but now we expanded from consumer electronics, not only consumer electronics, but also to the entertainment sectors of Sony. That is from a breadth point of view. Mm-hmm. And of course, from a depth and architecture point of view, we were typically providing just the services. We were kind of order takers, receiving certain requests from our headquarters or from our stakeholders in other parts of the world. But now we are driving several of those large initiatives, including some very transformation programs like ERP transformation, converting into S/4HANA, the single instance implementation, and so on. So I think there's been a lot of change that has happened in the last 10 to 15 years in terms of where we are positioned and how we are perceived in the larger Sony scheme of things.
Good to know. And you are so right. I think our journey is pretty much aligned to how we map out the GCC evolution also, where you had extension teams and essentially headcounts supporting a larger initiatives to now capabilities driving critical initiatives.
Absolutely, yes.
Give us some, idea about probably, as you map out your journey, what were some of the inflection points for Sony? And, how did that translate for your center in terms of where you are in defining your identity? Of course, some of that is a natural progression that will happen. But were there certain inflection points, be it in terms of the business, leadership, or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of inflection points, Sukanya, that I can immediately think of. So one is, firstly, when we started as a center about 25 years back, one of the things that we wanted to get was achieve a certain amount of critical mass. I think that was very important. And again, before I joined, I think the previous leaders within Sony, I think they did a tremendous job in building the critical mass, establishing the basic capability in terms of technology, talent, availability, execution, and all that. So I think that was a wonderful job done by my predecessors before I joined Sony. That was one of the first inflection points, I would say. The second one was, once we had the critical mass, we also got the attention from our headquarters, and we also got a sponsor at the headquarters to kind of bless us and provide us direction in terms of where we need to be headed, what are the critical capabilities that we need to build, and also promoting. Again, every company works slightly differently, but being a Japanese headquartered company, we wanted that nudge, or at least that support at the back end, saying that, okay, yeah, why not look at India for doing certain things. I think
Absolutely.
that sponsorship was very, very useful for us. I think that was a second inflection point. And the third, I felt, which is a significant inflection point, that I would say it came from within. Like I said earlier, we were more of order takers and just reacting to what comes our way, or what we used to get some requests from our businesses. The third inflection point was something that we tried from within, in terms of, okay, one is, of course, we'll provide support to whatever demand comes our way, but let's try to innovate, let's try to ideate. And again, we didn't have any big problem statements coming from our stakeholders, because the stakeholders felt that, oh, we are good in order taking, but not something doing proactively. But that we changed around by doing certain POC, certain ideation, some experimentation that we did about 2014-15 timeframe. That changed our game in terms of not only to just do the routine work, but also create something new using the power of technology, using the power of understanding Sony businesses, what we could do without somebody telling us. I think that was a big inflection point in changing the game for Sony in India for us.
I can imagine it's very easy to be in also in a comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? Where things are coming in, we are moving it. But so tell me, I'll just have a sub question to this: is how did you bring about that change within yourself? You said it was an internal motivation,
Yes.
right? So did you guys? Was it more of the internally leadership motivating people? Did you pick up maybe some people coming from organizations and mindsets which were a little different to kind of shake things up a little? How did you break that the rhythm, the comfort zone that had got created?
Yeah, absolutely. So now you rightly said that, it's very difficult to break out of that comfort zone. We did a couple of things, or actually a couple of things, a couple of factors influenced us to make that change. So one was, there was a little bit of a lull because our business were going through some transformation, and there was a lot of focus on cost reduction. So the teams were kind of, put their heads down, just focusing on getting things done, and they wanted something more challenging. Instead of just looking at cost reduction, there was not big transformation programs running at that time. So just to create that motivation, instill that energy, tap into the talent of our people, myself and my leadership team, we thought of this as an opportunity. Let's create something new. I think we all knew that our teams were great in terms of technology capability and so on, and we wanted to use that to trigger some of the ideas that, I mean, people are good with ideas, just that we need to channel into a proper methodology. So what we did was, we came up with the idea of a hackathon. I mean, of course, we didn't call it as a hackathon at that time, but we said, okay, let's break into a room, and let's give a challenge to our people, saying that, in fact, coincidentally, we called it as a Code Premier League. It's still running. So this happened in 2014. So we call this as Code Premier League, very similar to IPL, Indian Premier League. It's a 20-hour, 20-hour, just like a 20-over cricket term. We used a 20-hour effort to see how we can develop certain ideas, or make some ideas into reality. So I think that was one of the biggest turning points for us, and quite a bit of interest came from within the team. Almost about, in the first edition of CPL, we had almost about 35 teams participating, and we had some ideas. Again, we all knew, and even when we started this idea, of the CPL, we all knew that even if there are 25 or 30 ideas that will come, probably only 5 or 6 of them will see the light of the day. But still, we went ahead. We thought it is a good, worthwhile investment, not from the output of those ideas, but more for motivating, retaining talent, and creating that positivity around us. like I said, that the time was when there was a lot of just focus on cost reduction. Just to break that monotony, we conceived this event, and I think it was a good turning point. And very soon, when we had some senior executives from headquarters or other parts of the business, when they visited us, we arranged a kind of a demo of all these ideas, and we strictly said no PowerPoints. Just show us the demo of the tools. No PowerPoint. PPT was not even allowed. Those were some of the rules that we created just to make sure that it is not something that is just talked at a concept level, but something that is implementable. I think that was
tangible and visible to people.
Absolutely, yes. I think that was a really good transformation or a journey that we did, or trigger for our journey that happened afterwards.
So it was all at, you had to demo POCs there.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And then some of that exposure that probably went to the global leaders helped them open up to more ideas that would come, and then eventually they would get into the roadmap.
Absolutely, yes.
That organized effort is so important, Ravi.
Yeah, in fact, some of those ideas are actually implemented, and it is, in fact, it's one of the ideas, particularly for the Sony Pictures team, that's created a new business altogether, a totally new business model for us, which was not even existing before. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Of course, we raised several patents along the way because of these kind of events.
That is such good, insights. You spoke about, your the global leadership visit, etc. Now, one thing that's very important, and it is especially also, I think, a little bit more, highlighted in a Japanese company, is cultural alignment, right? While it's not easy for any two cultures to seamlessly understand each other, just the fact that I think 65% of our exports in India happens with North America, I think our understanding of the American culture is a little bit more. The Japanese culture is a little different. So how do you create this cultural alignment within teams? I know it takes a lot to build trust with Japanese stakeholders, but once you build it, it reaps some great outcomes. So one is this entire cultural alignment trust. Second is, how do you ensure that people feel and enjoy shared goals and vision, and it's not you versus us, but us together? How do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely, Sonia. I think both are extremely valuable or important points for any global organization. For us, yeah, of course, I think it's like you said, it's very natural or a little bit easier for people in India to adjust or understand the American way of working, probably because of more exposure. The Japanese one is a little bit more challenging, but fortunately for us, we've always had the frequent visits, both from Japan, people visiting from Japan, as well as people from India who travel to Japan on a frequent basis. So that's something that we've enabled. We've always budgeted, made sure that understanding of each other in terms of cultural and expectation management, all that is taken care of. So that is one thing. The second is, even we do have few expats from Japan working out of Bangalore premises. Not a lot, maybe about 10 expats from Japan working in our premises. So that helps a lot in terms of bridging the gaps, and especially in terms of language part, that is very helpful. The third one is we've institutionalized what we call as a JALCAP program. JALCAP basically stands for Japanese Language and Cultural Appreciation Program. So this program, through which we do have a lot of training programs to learn Japanese. I think language is an integral part of the cultural fitment. So from that point of view, we have quite a few of our engineers do speak Japanese, do learn Japanese, and they communicate in Japanese and so on. So many of our PMOs, especially for Japanese projects, they are typically Japanese speakers. Some of them are excellent natives, almost equivalent to native speakers. So that way, I think we have a good talent availability for bridging this cultural gaps. And last but not the least, again, it is mutual respect. Like you said, we've over the years we've built that respect. Now we are an integral part of the Sony organization. So from that perspective, the you versus us, I think the trust is increased. At the same time, we've also reorganized our teams in such a way that we don't have this India center versus Japanese center versus Singapore center and so on. Many of our projects, it is a mix of all the teams working as one team. And even from my reporting line perspective, there are people who are working in India as well as working in Japan, working in US and so on. So they all actually work as one team. And I think one of the key principles that we have laid out for our entire IS organization is collaboration. So I think that's one of the key words or key values that we always emphasize. So again, I'm not saying that it is all complete and we are all very smooth. Of course, we do have certain challenges, but we are very much aware that these challenges have to be overcome, and there are significant efforts to mitigate some of those cultural gaps that we may encounter.
So cross location reporting, cross location projects, those have ensured a great outcome. How do you, I mean, again, a sub question to this point is, there is all these questions around productivity and co-location, and how can you structurally, as much as possible, do something from some place. Of course, Japan and India has significant time overlap. That's a great plus. But with US, that often tends to be a challenge. So what is that fine balance between how much you do cross-country versus how much you kind of structure within location to ensure there is, things don't get stuck because of the lack of, time zone issues or availability or anything of that sort?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no one solution to solve this. So the balance is something that, of course, we keep on adjusting or fine tuning in such a way that we get the best output from the global teams, including team in India as well as other teams outside of India as well. But like you said, we have almost a 12-hour time difference between US and India, and we don't have any other sort of nearshore location for us in the American time zone at this time. So what we do is we have a clear responsibility outlined in terms of who will do what. We do have a very thin team in the US and also a very small team in Canada as well. So we do have certain responsibilities, or we have defined some internal operational level agreements so that we know who is responsible for what. So for example, if there is a critical incident, let's say midnight India time, the first triaging that would happen is within the team in US and Canada. And if they are, if there is something that they can solve, of course, it is done completely from there. If they need some expertise, of course, there are ways by which they could reach out to the India team, and then India team, although it is midnight or 1 a.m. or something, people wake up and they do deliver that particular responsibility. So I think that's one part of what we have. So that is from a time zone perspective. But more importantly, from again, the earlier question that from where you started, this one is basically on the cultural part. So the cultural part, again, we have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Again, for the 90% of our work that we have, it is from India, the main responsibility is the delivery in terms of any specific projects, including certain times the architecture delivery or testing and so on. So everything is done, or 90% of the work is done from India. And then, of course, we have those 10% of cases where if it is related to the project charter preparation or planning for a particular project or key solution design workshops, that typically happens with co-location. So we do have a mix of co-located work as well as something which is distributed work. And one, how do I say, the silver lining in the cloud is, post-COVID, anyway, almost everybody is working remotely. So it really doesn't, distance is probably just a physical measurement, but when we are all working virtually, probably that difference would go away. That's my assumption for the future as well.
Yeah. That's the very clear advantage and something that we've learned. Of course, it comes with its own challenges because a lot of the innovation, the hackathons and all of that, right? Even the camaraderie building of forming these cross collaboration teams, sometimes isn't as effective. And, we have to rethink our ways of getting that aspect back into our work life right now.
Yeah,
and so I'm assuming then from your conversation that large part of your team is still in the hybrid or remote mode.
Yeah, we have a mix of, we are in a hybrid mode of working. So right now we are working at 2 days per week in office, and again, with certain flexibility to certain teams for more or less, depending on the situations.
Got it. I'll come to, I think, probably the most important conversation, Ravi, and that's talent, right? Because all of us are in the knowledge business, and we're as strong as our people, as capable as, our most capable team members. And India, or rather the world itself today, the technology industry is competitive. Earlier, just the technology companies were looking for tech talent. Today, a tech talent is needed no matter what industry you're in. And you guys yourself were talking about your media houses, right? Hardly they would have in-house tech teams, but today they do because of the amount of digital everywhere. So in such an environment, how does any organization, be it someone who's been in the play for a while and the brands are well known like Sony, or anyone new coming in, how do you build a strong employee value proposition, right? From talent attraction to retention to development. Give us some examples of what you think are, things that would help any organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a challenge, probably not just for Sony. I think the entire industry is trying to figure out.
No matter who you speak to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, we are trying to, continuously look at revisiting our policies, our approaches in terms of hiring and retaining talent. Personally, my opinion is, of course, there's a lot of immediate knee-jerk reaction in terms of in the industry to look at compensation as a big factor. But frankly, honestly, compensation is not one of the most important ones. I believe the purpose is going to be purpose of why somebody is in an organization. That has to be very, very clear. I think that becomes a big change from employee motivation perspective. Typically, we also hire a lot of freshers. We hire a lot of talent, lateral talent as well. Of course, compensation needs to be certainly looked at. It is important, but it is probably not a game changer. When we hire talent, we typically look at where that person is, what is his or her skills, and how do we assign a suitable project so that they get to work on something interesting, challenging, and so on. That is, of course, baseline in terms of what we need to do to ensure continuity of our business. But what will engage our employees much better is really driving what contribution that the individual makes from a larger impact to the overall organization. The purpose in terms of, again, Sony, in contrary to a service provider, of course, more technology focused. But in Sony, we try to look at a mix of technology as well as business understanding. If you're just in the technology play, a person is easily replaceable with another person on the street. But I think the real value or real mission that we are working on is basically to look at closer to business. Get what is important from a technology, and what more importantly, what technology can do for the business. I think that's basically the driving point that we are continuously focusing on. And towards this, of course, one of the key themes or one of the key missions that we have identified within the India team is we have a tagline which is basically closer to business. So no fancy jargons, but simply closer to business, basically looking at how we can add value. Like I said, even the hackathons that we did, a lot of experimentation we did. But out of 10 ideas, probably only 2 or 3 are even relevant. But if we have a better understanding of business, we could probably increase that ratio to maybe 5 or 6. So I think that is something that we are trying heavily to focus on, for our employees to not only focus on technology is still core, technology is still very important, but complement that or supplement that with the solid business understanding. So that's one of the important focus areas that we are looking at to retain talent, attract talent, be a differentiation compared to many other companies, many other great companies in the marketplace.
Got it. Great, Ravi. I think great points. Thank you for sharing with us. Very relevant discussions. These are probably, while a lot of organizations have gone through their journeys and probably at a very similar stage, but how you navigate that journey is very interesting depending on your context, where you start, what's the organization like, and when you start. Thank you so much for sharing insights with us. It was lovely talking with you today, Ravi. Have a great day.
Thank you, Sukanya. Very nice talking to you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us.